If you're going to win your fantasy football leagues this year, you're going to have to draft a breakout. Well, Joe and I are here to talk to you about our breakouts for the 2023 season.
Hike!
All right, so my first breakout is quarterback Trevor Lawrence. Currently, his current ADP is 54, and he's the quarterback 8. So Trevor Lawrence is in his second year with Doug Peterson as his head coach after the nightmare that was Urban Meyer. With Peterson last year, Lawrence threw for over 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns. That was a surprisingly kind of a low rate of a 4.3 touchdown rate last year that he had, but he looked a lot better last year under Doug Peterson. Expecting him to take another step in the second year here. He had 6 top 12 finishes in the second half of last year and finished as the QB8. Lawrence was 7th in passing attempts. If he passes for 30-plus touchdowns this year, which I think he definitely can, especially with the addition of Ridley to this offense, and then they also, bolstered up the offensive line with taking a tackle in the first round this year as well. If the passing volume stays that way, as I mentioned, I think he can get 30-plus touchdowns. I think Trevor Lawrence could finish as the top 5 quarterback this year.
Yeah, I agree with you, Joe. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to take a significant jump. He's more familiar with Doug Peterson's style of offense. They were able to bring back Evan Ingram. They went ahead and acquired Calvin Ridley. And if he is even a shell of his former self, I think he could really help this offense big time. I mean, Christian Kirk had a phenomenal season last year. Zay Jones, had a breakout season, honestly. So he's got a ton of weapons, and so long as he feels, comfortable in that offense, even they drafted that Brenton Strange, as a second tight end. So, I mean, he's got weapons all over the place. So I like Lawrence a lot. I agree with you. I think he's going to break out this season. So my first breakout is running back Rachaad White. His ADP is 72, and he is right now ranked as running back 28. Leonard Fournette is no longer a Buccaneer, and last season he had 189 attempts, 668 rushing yards, 83 targets, 73 receptions, and 6 total touchdowns. So that is completely vacated, and they haven't brought anyone in to contend with Rachaad White's starting role. They did, have Sean Tucker, who was undrafted. They brought in Chase Edmonds. They've had Keshawn Vaughn for a long time, but really hasn't been utilized very much, really at all. And so this is Rachaad White's backfield. And so for me, he's a very talented player. His prowess for the receiving game is very strong. And in today's NFL, if you have a running back who's a dual threat running back, that makes him even more valuable for fantasy. And that's what Rachaad White is. So in 16 games last year, he had 129 attempts, 481 rushing yards, 58 targets, 50 receptions, 290 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I project him over a 17-game season to average over 5.1 targets a game, having 210 rushing attempts, 735 rushing yards, 87 targets, 63 receptions, 476 receiving yards, and 9 touchdowns. So I think he is definitely going to outpace his running back 28 ranking. And so long as the Buccaneers do not bring in a veteran running back like a Kareem Hunt or Leonard Fournette, until this video is posted, or to the beginning of the season, I believe Rachaad White will be a breakout.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I guess the one good thing is, we see Dalvin Cook going to the Jets and Ezekiel Elliott's going to the Patriots. So 2 veteran running backs are now off the board. It still leaves the opening for Leonard Fournette to possibly sign there. But I agree. If he holds off the veteran running backs, I don't know what to expect from this Buccaneers offense. Don't think it's going to be that good, but there's no doubt he's the guy, and the volume should still be there for him.
Yeah, and the other thing I didn't mention too is Todd Bowles. I think he prefers having a ground and pound team with a really stout defense. I think you almost kind of saw some of those frustrations last year with Tom Brady, wanting to go for it even on 4th downs, and him just trotting over to the side of the field because Bowles is just so conservative. So with Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask as a potential quarterbacks, I think that the check down is going to be a real possibility for that offense. For Rashad White. So I think he could be really good. And I think they're going to rely pretty heavily on the running game. I actually think I could be a little bit conservative. I could see someone actually projecting even higher for a guy like Rashad White. But I want to be modest in my projection.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there's just a lot of unknown with this offense. But one thing I do know is Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield aren't going to be throwing the ball 50 times a game like Tom Brady was. No longer is this team going to be leading the league in passing attempts, that's for sure.
So are you enjoying this video so far? Well, if you are, show your support to our new channel by hitting the subscribe button and liking this video. We'll be creating videos all NFL season long, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store.
All right, so my next breakout candidate is going to be running back James Cook. His current ADP sits at 78, and he's the RB 31. I don't know if this one surprised you or not, Steve, but this is a guy that, of late here in training camp, from everything that I'm hearing, I've been really rising on him. Everything I've been reading on Twitter from the Buffalo beat writers is this guy has been the true number RB1 for this offense. I've heard Damian Harris has kind of struggled so far, acclimating with the Buffalo Bills offense. Devin Singletary is no longer part of this backfield. And that's honestly what the biggest problem for James Cook last year was. It wasn't so necessarily about his performance, but just the lack of opportunities that he had last year coming in as a rookie. But he had 6.2 yards per touch in his rookie year last year, which ranks sixth best among the rookie running backs over the last 10 years. At first, when the Damian Harris signing first occurred, I was like, oh man, here it goes. Like, I was concerned about the opportunities that Cook was going to have, but everything I'm hearing, like I mentioned in training camp, has definitely eased my concerns. And with the efficiency and the high ceiling of this Bills offense, I expect him to be that high ceiling player. And he's a part of a Bills offense that's high powered and ranked second in scoring last year. So I'm expecting good things from James Cook this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too surprised. I mean, he's definitely a guy we've been talking of late, and I think he's definitely been someone that we've been buzzing about. I think I can see it. I don't know if I fully believe in the breakout for him. I think the question will be, will he get a lot in the receiving game? That they really don't have a slot receiver that I think is really, really good. So is it Shakir? Is it James Cook, right? Throwing it out of the backfield because he's an elite route runner. He's a great receiver out of the backfield. Is it Dalton Kincaid? I'm a Dalton Kincaid guy. So, but I can see it. And I think Damian Harris has been dealing with some injuries as well, which is, helping James Cook right now. But I will say this. I think running back, I think where he's ranked is ridiculous. Running back 30. I can't believe that people believe there are 30 other better running backs than James Cook. I just think the ceiling is there. And I'm with you. I want to draft guys who I think could break out, and he definitely could.
Yeah, and that's the thing with these breakouts is shoot for the guys with high ceilings. Everyone knows in order to be a league winner or to win weekly matchups, you need those big ceiling plays or guys that just get you those, large amount of points. And James Cook's definitely one of those players.
Yeah, so my second breakout, and this probably won't be a surprise to you, Joe, because I'm a big fan of his, but wide receiver George Pickens. He is ADP 84 and wide receiver 35. Last season, Kenny Pickett averaged 29.9 attempts last season. I project that to go up at least by 30 to 31.4 attempts. In 17 games, he had 85 targets, 63 receptions, 804 yards, and 4 touchdowns. I know people believe that Deontay Johnson will bounce back, but I am actually of the belief that George Pickens will take a big jump forward. Pittsburgh has had a knack for developing wide receivers. In my mind, they've been a wide receiver factory, developing receivers, the likes of it, and like Antonio Brown late. And so for me, I think that this is George Pickens' time to shine. I actually wouldn't be surprised from a dynasty perspective that they actually move off of Deontay Johnson next year and just cut him the way they structured that contract. I believe they signed him to a 3-year deal a little while ago. And based on the dead cap implications, I think they can get out of that contract. Deontay's got drop issues. I think Pickens has got the big play ability. And so for me, I actually project Pickens to get around 6.8 targets a game over a 17-game season. I think he's going to have 111 targets, 84 receptions, 1,084 yards, and 7 touchdowns. And if he does do that, I think he definitely will be a breakout.
Yeah, I definitely see the path. I think there's potential. I'm definitely not as high on Pickens as you, but there's no doubt he's a high ceiling player. He's that down the field threat, like you mentioned. I feel like he's going to be similar to that Mike Williams type player. Just a high contested guy. They take their shot down the field. But I still believe you're too low on Deontay Johnson. I get your points with the drop issues, but he's still going to be a focal point of the offense with the shorter passes. And, other than George Pickens, and there's no way Deontay Johnson's going to have 0 touchdowns again this year.
I mean, I agree with you. I think he won't have 0 touchdowns, but that doesn't mean he won't get like 1 or 2. To me, I don't see him, rebounding back like people think.
Yeah, that's fair. So my last breakout candidate here is going to be wide receiver Jahan Dotson. His current ADP sits at 91, and he's currently the wide receiver 38. So Jahan Dotson is somebody that I'm, really liking this year. There's a long track record of being able to hit on second-year wide receivers in fantasy, kind of hit that second-year breakout. It's been something that's been happening long history here in fantasy. So he's a guy that I'm liking the target. You can get him later in the draft. You don't have to spend up for him like a guy like, Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave, who are also in their second years. And, Jahan Dotson's still going to be, a solid potential, wide receiver 3 with maybe wide receiver 2 potential on your team here. But as a rookie, he secured a 93.4 snap share percentage, which was pretty impressive considering, they do have Terry McLaurin as well. He started the year off really hot. He had 4 touchdowns in his first 4 weeks, but then slowed down by a hamstring injury there in week 5. But he did come after he came back, the hamstring healed. He did average 7 targets per game over the last 5 weeks of last season. And now there's the philosophy change and a quarterback change. I think Eric Bieniemy is really going to bring a lot of juice to this offense, and maybe they take more shots down the field. And that's honestly one of the things I like most about Sam Howell. And what I heard in the draft process was out of the draft class when he was drafted that he had one of the, best deep balls. And if that's the case, that's going to be great for Jahan Dotson. I mean, as a rookie, his average depth of target was just under 14 yards last year. So he's another big ceiling guy and looking for him to break out this year.
Joe, George Pickens is in his second year too.
Yes, that's fair, Steve. I do know.
But as far as Jahan Dotson goes,
Jahan Dotson is just the speedster. I think that's the difference. He's going to create that separation. That's almost why I don't like. I'm a little more worried about Pickens is because he's just so much relying on that contested catch rate. He doesn't create that separation. I know he's the big body guy, can go get it, but his contested catch rate was high last year, but it's just tough to keep repeating that year after year.
Yeah, I mean, I like Dotson. I'm with you. I think he's definitely a great upside play. I think I see the path for him to break out. I think there's some question marks that are going to make it so that some people are going to avoid him or maybe not go as hard for him, with, Eric Bieniemy coming in. Is the offense really going to cater to Dotson with Sam Howell as a quarterback? Can he really support him to be a wide receiver too? I think he's definitely a solid flex play, but to get that breakout, does he even potentially outpace Terry McLaurin? I think that would be kind of crazy. But I think it's in the realm of possibility that it could happen. So I think, and if it does, then he definitely becomes a breakout. But and then you got Curtis Samuel too, right? I mean, he's kind of more of a gadgety type player. Bieniemy, or I don't know. Again, is it Bieniemy? Is it Andy Reid? Right? You see these plays with Kadarius Toney, and the like that they do these fancy, routes and plays and all this stuff. Will Samuel or Antonio Gibson too, right? You and I both like Antonio Gibson as well, possibly as a receiver. So it'll be interesting, but I definitely see the path. All right, so my last breakout is wide receiver Elijah Moore, ADP 109 and wide receiver 45. I got to say, I cannot believe this guy is at wide receiver 45. He was traded in the offseason from the New York Jets, who have done complete disservice to him and his development. But the Browns traded away their second-round pick in exchange for a third-round pick and Elijah Moore. But they moved some significant draft capital to move up move back to get Elijah Moore. Last season, Deshaun Watson averaged 28.3 attempts, and I project that to go up to about 32.5 attempts over a 17-game season. So that means there's going to be a lot of targets out there. Elijah Moore has never, in his first 2 seasons, had over 100 targets in a season. In 16 games last year, he had 65 targets, 44 receptions, 450 yards, and 1 touchdown, which was pretty abysmal. I project him to have average of around 6.5 targets per game. Over a 17-game season, I have him getting 111 targets, 67 receptions, 774 receiving yards, and 6 touchdowns. I think that even that could be possibly conservative. Deshaun Watson has never had a receiver of Elijah Moore's caliber to be able to play in the slot. And so I think that he could be a great security blanket for Deshaun Watson. I think Kevin Stefanski in that offense, the whole philosophy, I think, is going to change. They let Kareem Hunt go. The offense was a run-first team really built behind Chubb and Hunt to really power that offense. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they're going to have Deshaun Watson throw a significant amount of times. And so as a result, where are those targets going to go? They do have some other options like Cedric Tillman and Donovan Peoples-Jones, but I think the talent is there for Elijah Moore, and I think he's going to really break out in his 3rd year.
Yeah, I can definitely see it. I think the reason he's so low is I think they've just been so soured by his name because of just the lack of the opportunity he had with the Jets and just how much heartbreak he's caused. I think last year everyone was thinking there was potential to, year 2 wide receiver breakout for Elijah Moore last year on the Jets even. It just for whatever reason, the Jets didn't use him. But like you said, Browns gave up significant draft capital to get this guy. I think they're going to use him. And, they got Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones on the outside. And then, like you said, over the middle of the field and then out of the slot position, there should be a lot of room to roam for Elijah Moore.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I think people could be concerned to say, are there a lot of mouths to feed, right? You got Amari Cooper. I didn't mention David Njoku, Elijah Moore. I mentioned the receivers, right? Are there enough mouths to feed? But this is not your Cleveland Browns offense that you're used to. I mean, I don't think we have seen an offense from the Browns like this in a very long time as far as the passing volume is concerned. I mean, I really think they're going to change completely how they do things. And as a result, I think multiple players on this offense will be fantasy relevant, probably for the first time in a long, long time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think there definitely will be that shift from more of the run first to more of that passing offense, and it definitely increased, passing volume with Deshaun Watson. So it definitely will be interesting to see, how everything shakes out and how many players can Watson support in this passing attack.
So who are your favorite breakouts? Go ahead and put in comments below who they are, and Joe and I will give our opinion on what we think about your favorite breakouts. Later on this week, we're going to be talking about busts and also my guys. You're not going to want to miss that. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.